Hello and welcome to this webinar on SAP Business One version 10 feature pack updates. My name is Ketan Solanki. As you may be well aware, that version 10 has now been around for 18 months or so. And as of version 10, SAP has moved away from calling the various releases patches, but they're rather called feature packs. And there is a new feature pack every 3 months. And the last sort of update we did was about 6 months ago. So there have been 2 additional feature packs released in between. So these are feature pack 2105 and feature pack 2108. So the naming convention is sort of the year, which is 21, and then the month, which is 05 or 08. The next feature pack release will be 2111, which coincidentally is going to arrive sometime in the first week of December. And if there are any sort of fixes or updates to be released between feature packs, then SAP release what they call hot fixes. Okay, so let's have a look at today's agenda. So firstly, as you will know that with version 10, SAP has introduced the web client with SAP Business One. So, and progressively over a number of releases and patches, they have put more functionality into that particular interface for SAP Business One. And so we're going to have a bit of a look at what new features have been released in the last 2 feature packs. And additionally, we'll look at a number of other enhancements that have been included in the traditional sort of FAT client that you're used to logging in. Just another informational point. There's a sales and service app that's been around for a long time, was only available with HANA in the past. As of feature pack 2105, the sales and service app is now also available with SQL. And this has happened due to the service layer technology being now available with the SQL version. This was only available with HANA previously. So if you want to have a look at the functionality with the sales or the service app, you can sort of go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and download the app and use it in demo mode to see what functionality it offers. All right, so to start with, we're going to look at the enhancements that have been introduced with the web client. And these sort of fall into, probably 3 major categories. First being new modules or new functions being introduced. The second being enhancements to existing functions. And thirdly, some reporting and analytics type enhancements. So to start with, we'll look at the new features. So I'm just going to switch into my web client. And so those who have seen this before, this web interface, you've got the various modules that are available, and you can quickly sort of swing or move from one module to another. But you also have the ability to do your traditional sort of menu system similar to what you've got inside the SAP Business One client. So coming back to what is new, so the first additional feature that's been introduced is the ability to do AR reserve invoices. So that's now an option within the web client. You can create AR invoices as well as view existing ones, and the actual interface and how you use the client is no different from how you'd enter a sales order or a quote that have already been previously delivered. The other sort of related features that have been introduced is the ability to do returns and AR credits. So these to round off the functionality around the sales side, you now have the ability to do those things. And then on the purchasing side, we've got a couple of new features. So firstly, you're now able to raise purchase orders. So up till then, up till now, you were only able to view some of the purchasing transactions, but now you're also able to raise purchase orders and purchase quotations directly through the web client. So if I actually went in and said, let's look at a purchase order, you can go in and view a listing of purchase orders. But what you can also do is, if I went and said create a purchase order, I can then go select a supplier. I can go in and put some product into the purchase order, and then if I'm happy with the quantities and such, I can essentially add that as a new purchase order. And then once you've added it, you can look at it. You can go and edit it again to modify it if need be. And once you've sort of modified and done whatever you needed to do, you can save it away. And if we come back to the listing of purchase orders, you'll see the new purchase order that I just created is also available in this listing, and you can access the actual purchase order back in there. So these, as I said before, these interfaces for those transactional screens look pretty well the same, for the various transaction types. Okay, so the next new feature we've got is support for business partner catalog numbers. So, when you've got a product and you've got multiple customers or suppliers you're dealing with, and those customers or suppliers have their own product codes for those same items, you've now got the ability to maintain the catalog numbers directly from the web client. So I'm going to go into the item master and just pick up my office printer here. And what you'll notice is up here in the options, you've got an option to do business partner catalog numbers. So if I then click on that option, it takes me into the screen where it shows me existing catalog numbers. So I can see, here, or for this one here, or for MaxiTac, I can see that, there's 3 different catalog numbers, and, which is the default one for each one of those customers or suppliers. So what I can then do is, if I went into edit mode, I can then add another customer or supplier. Let's say I could add a supplier in there, and then for that supplier, once again, I select the item and put in the catalog number that the supplier has given me, and then we can save that away. So it's just an additional little feature around catalog numbers that's now part of the web client. The next function, and this is probably a major feature that has been introduced, is the support for service calls and solutions knowledge base. So if I go back to our home screen, you see here we've got the option for service now. This is new, and within that you've got service calls, create new service calls, and likewise maintain solution knowledge base and create new solutions. Now, of course, the service call screen inside SAP looks quite a bit different from your sales related screens. So let's have a look at what we have in here. So you've got various views. You can see all the open ones assigned to you. You can see all service calls that are in the system. You can see all unresolved ones, and you can see all service calls, whether open or closed, assigned to yourself. And then from here you can drill into one and look at the details of the service call. and so on. So if we then, let's say we're going to create a new service call, and we come back to the general. So firstly, we got to select a customer. So say selecting my customer Mexitech, and then I've got to select a serial number or an equipment card that's assigned or linked to this particular customer. So I'm going to go search through and find the right one. So let's say it's this rainbow laser, and I select it. And then once I've selected that, I got to put in a subject. So, let's say head is not working. And at this stage, I can just add this to save it up as a service call, and then I can go in and edit, and we've got the business partner details, what address we need to go work at, who the contact person is and we need to deal with, and then if we go into solutions and resolutions, so this is where you can link from the solutions knowledge base, some of the actual solutions that exist for these items. You don't, you either do that, or you can type in a resolution. And of course, as you can do in standard SAP, you can also create transactions. So things like sales orders, purchase orders relating to this particular service call. So if I went in and said I wanted to a sales order, and then from here I can select a list from a list of existing sales orders, or I can go in and say create a new one. So if I say create a new one, it pops open another screen, which allows me to then select a customer and say select a date, and then put in some products that I'm going to be including on this particular sales order, and then I can add that. So once I've added that, that particular sales order is then linked to this service call via related documents, and you'll see that anywhere you want to drill back and see more details, you can click on that option, and then if that's not sufficient detail and you want to actually see the transaction, you can sort of say view more, either in the current tab, which will just open the data in this tab, or I can say view more, and it'll open up a new tab where I can see the details of that transaction that I've just recorded in the system. Okay, and there it is. So let's come back to our service call, and then you've got the ability to also define a schedule. So if you want to assign this to a technician, you can go in and say schedule, and which technician is going to do it, who else is sort of managing it, when do they need to do this work, what time do they start, and where they need to go to do the work, and so on. So you can save all those details in on the service call, and then you're done. So now this is a service call that's being worked on, and you just go through that standard SAP process of completing it. Okay, so that's the service call functionality. And then the last new feature is the ability to manage opportunities. So if we come back to CRM, you'll see there's the ability to create opportunities. So if we can look at existing opportunities in the system. and view them. And so just like you inside SAP, you'll see your general tab, your stages and partners and competitors. You've got the same thing here. You know, you've got your various stages. Within each stage, if you've linked a particular sales order or a quotation, then you can see those as well, and you can drill into those. If you've created activities, you can see those activities as well on the you can see how many activities have been created. And then if you want to sort of look at related activities, you can do that, opportunity related activity, and that kind of brings you to the activity screen, and you can go and have a look at that, and then come back and look at your the actual opportunity that you've been working with. Likewise, with the stages, you can drill in and see more details about it. So if I went and said, I want to edit this particular opportunity, then I've got the ability to go in and change whatever details I want. I can go in and sort of add a stage to the opportunity, and let's say, in this case, the opportunity has moved backwards, and so it's gone back to a quotation stage for whatever reason, and I can sort of then once again link it, create a new quote if I wanted to, directly from the opportunity, and then I save it. And as you can do it in SAP, you can also in here come in and sort of mark the opportunity as completed once you've won it, and then you can then give it a reason of why you may have won or lost the opportunity. So that's the opportunity functionality that's now available inside the web client. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is something that's sort of been introduced, more functional, which is within the sales side. You can now manage serials, batches, and bin numbers on the transactions. So if you've got a sales order, and the sales order is for an item that is batch tracked or serial tracked, or you're working in a warehouse that is bin managed, when you then get to the delivery point, you can actually record the serial numbers and those information that wasn't available till the most recent release. So let's start by creating a new one. So what you also notice is you're also starting to get these sort of messages around credit limit, and it's telling me that I've exceeded my credit limit and whether I want to continue. That's new. And the other thing you notice is the credit limit utilization is also quite visible on the transactional screen. It's not just visible here. In fact, if you go into the customer master record, you'll see the same information on here as well. And if you sort of scroll between records, you'll also notice that the credit limit utilization is updated, based on the customer record that you're looking at. So back onto our sales order, and what we're going to do is enter an order for some product, a serial tracked item, a batch tracked item, and a normal item that's just no serial or batch. So that's my item that doesn't have any serial or batches. What I'll also do is set this up for the transaction to happen against a warehouse that's been managed. Okay, so And that's my serialized item. And this is my batch tracked item. Okay, so I got 3 different products with 3 slightly different types of setups, but all of them I'm going to process against a bin managed warehouse. And let's just put in a quantity of 2 there, it's quantity of 4 there, and on the labels, let's say quantity of 5. Okay, so we've done our sales order, so I'm just going to add in view. Once again, it's sort of warning me about the credit limit. I'll just keep going. And then once I've done that, and then I go and do a conversion to a delivery. So you notice you can do a conversion to a delivery invoice or reserve invoice. In our cases, we're just going to a delivery. There pops the screen with the same information. So I go into the logistics area, and this is where I need to record the bin location from where I'm picking the items, as well as the serial or batch details. And you'll see there's some additional columns here for us to put the details in. So I can go in and I can start typing the bin location, and the system sort of giving me the locations where the stock is. So then you can see that there's 8 in one location and there's 1 in the other. So I can go in, and if you remember, we had, for this particular item, we need 4 of those. So I can go in and I can select something from the list. If I select this item where there's only 1, or this particular bin where there's only 1, well, it's only assigning 1. And then the balance will need to come from the remaining location. So I could do that. Or I could go into this list here. And then from here, I can say, well, actually, I want 1 from there and 3 from there. Or if I could also click on auto select, and the system would select for me. So that's on the on an item that doesn't have any serial or batch. The next item is a serialized item. So if I went in here and once again started typing, it starts giving me a list of locations where the stock is. But probably what's more appropriate is if I went into the batch and serial number and started typing, then it gives me a list of serial numbers and the locations where those serial numbers are. Now I'm looking for 2, so I can go in and select the first one, and then I can type in and select the next one. So that's one way of doing it. Or I could go in and just search up a list and then say, yep, I'm going to take that one, and just select those. And you also saw that there was an auto select button there. And then finally, we've got the printer label, which is a batch tracked item. So for batches, once again, you can type and it shows you the various batches and the quantities available. And you could select one or the other, and it defaults the quantity if there's quantity available. Or you could bring up a list, and from the list you could sort of assign from 2 different batches and save it like that. And so once you've done that, it's also showing you everything's sort of been selected correctly, and then you can add the transaction. And I mean, this transaction, once added, obviously updates back in SAP as well. So if I went back into SAP Business One and looked at that last delivery we just created, and you can see the, if you looked at the inventory posting list, you see all the details of the serials and the batch numbers and the bin locations of the transaction as well. Let's move on to the next point. So that was the serials and batches. And you can always see what serials and batches were used in the transaction when you come back and look at it later on. So back to home. So the last point is the approval processes and how they are now incorporated into the web client. So you can go in and see what documents are in approval for yourselves, or get a listing of all the approval documents. But you can also raise a transaction that needs to go through for an approval process. The actual approval still needs to happen in SAP, but you can raise the transaction here. And so if I'm just going to go into a different user now, a user that requires an approval for purchase order. So if we go into the purchase order screen, and so this is now user Alex, and Alex is going to create a new purchase order. Let's go into the contents, and let's say they want raising a purchase order for 3 of these, and I'm just going to go add. And you see here, this is a message saying generating this document requires authorization of other users. This can be done in the SAP Business One client, and okay. And so the actual approval, as I said, has to happen back in SAP. But, as a user, you can now see what documents are in the approval process. You see this one here. This is the one I just created, which is now awaiting pending approval. And I can go and look at it if I wanted to. So back in SAP, I see the message for the request. I go into the request and I approve it. So once I've approved it, the person who's sent the request will see an update in their messages. Probably in a few seconds, they'll get a notification in their messages area up here. And there it is, document, hang on. So, yep, document generation approved. They can go in directly from there and then sort of, because it's been approved, they can now edit that draft and add it as a real document. And now you can see that it's an actual transaction with this approval, and the status is approved now. So you can't do the actual approvals in the web client, but you can raise transactions, and once the approval's completed, you can get a message back saying it has been approved, and you can finalize the transaction. Okay, back to our the web client. Our next section we're going to look at is more around reporting and analytics and charts. So if I go into a sales order list, yes, we could always go in and export that data to Excel. So I could just go in and say export to Excel, and that'll just create an export, and I can view the data. Now, what's now available is if I go in and do some charting. So if I go into the chart view, in here I can do, let's say I'm going to view the data, document total, and I'm going to view the information by, let's say, creation year and month, for example. And let's say I want to get rid of this user signature. So I've got some sort of a chart that gives me some details about what's happened. What I then can do is I can export the data from the chart. The resulting data can be exported to Excel, and I can view that information like so. So I mean, it's not giving me the graph exported, but what I can see is the raw data and what it looks like in an exported format. Okay, so the next thing we'll look at is the ability to do data aggregation on these list screens. So if I go back to the table view, just before I do that, you can also open the chart in a full screen and see more detail, and you can view it in different sort of formats and so on. But if we come back and let's go back to our grid view. And in this grid view, if you are wanting to do, data sorted in this particular manner, you can go in and say, group the data by customer name. And then now you got sort of, various groupings by customers. And then you can get rid of the grouping. But what's new is the ability to group based on dates as well. So you can go in and sort of group by delivery dates if you wanted to, and then see the data in that particular manner, and as well as, sort the data in different ways. Okay, so that's the data aggregation. And then the last thing around the web client and analytics specifically is the whole section on analytics that's now available. So you can go into this section and, what they've got is, a concept, what they call cards. So there's various different cards you can create that give you different data that's relevant. And you can see that I've got a few different ones here. And, they can be bar graphs and, card charts and pie graphs and so on. And what's nice is you can go create your own. So if you go into edit, and let's go back to the bottom here. And if I go add, now in here I can go in and, start creating my own specific chart. So here's, and these are all the different types of transactions I can select. So I can go in and say, I'm going to do a report on invoices. And from an invoicing perspective, I want to see my document totals as well as I want to see gross profit. And so I select those two things. Then I can go in and say, I also want to do the data by posting year and month. So now I'm getting a graphical view of the same information by month and year. And I can give it a name. So sales by month. And then if I wanted a KPI, I can also put in a KPI. Oh, hang on, this record value, what happened there? I should have said document total. There you go. So, and then if I add that, I basically got finished edit. I've got this particular card now saved for myself, and I can always come back and look at this. These cards can also be added to, to these list screens. So if I went into the sales order list screen, I can go in and say card view, and then I can go and edit and add a new card in here. All right. Well, that sort of concludes the updates on the web client. A couple other points to note on the web client. One is that with Feature Pack 2111 coming out in December, there's going to be an ability to integrate with Microsoft Teams. So you'll be able to go in and view SAP information, web client interface inside Teams. And the other update that's already been delivered is the ability to do various plugins and enhancements, not to the standard features, but you can add extra sort of options in the menu system that you've created, your own customizations. So that's also now available. So what we'll do now is move into some of the additional features that have been introduced with version 10 inside the traditional client. So the first one there being the item description length. So the item description length has gone from 100 characters now to 200 characters. So if you look at your item master data, that field there now is 200 characters long, and you can see down here when I click my mouse on the field, you can see the item descriptions now 200 characters. So that's the first one. The other one is the copying of attachments. So when you're doing a transaction, let's say it's a sales order, and if you've got an attachment, let's say attach that, you've got the ability to now tick this box to say copy to target document. What that means is when I copy that sales order to another transaction, to a delivery, it will also copy the attachment link to that to the target document or the subsequent transaction. So if I tick this, update, and if I do copy to delivery, in the attachments area, you see that that particular attachment is also linked. Okay, next one here is duplicating barcodes. So, this is a new setting in the administration system initialization general settings. There's a new setting that says, do I want to duplicate barcodes when I duplicate items? So up till now, this option wasn't there. So when you duplicated a new item or duplicate an existing item, the barcodes would get duplicated. Now you've got the option of saying, well, actually, that doesn't make sense. I don't want it to automatically duplicate. So the next one here is back-to-back purchase orders from production orders. You all know that when you can do sales orders, and in a sales order, when you select this checkbox to say, procure non-dropship items, it will then raise at the time of creation of the sales order, you also get a notification to create a purchase order, right? So that's the concept of your back-to-back. That's standard functionality. What you got now is if you are raising a production order, you've got the same checkbox there to say procure items at the time of raising your production order, and that checkbox is also available on the line level, so that when you let me just do a new one. So when I raise a new production order, and if I tick the box, and let's say I want to purchase, a couple of the items, and I click add, and now I've got the procurement confirmation visit where it's sort of saying, well, that's the production order. Those are the items you need to purchase. You can go select a different supplier for one of the items if you wanted to, and then go raise your purchase orders for those two items. And then if you came back and looked at the relationship map, you'll see that there's those purchase orders now linked back to the production order, and this production order could possibly be linked to a sales order based on some back-to-back production order creation. Okay, next one is the bulk deletion of BOMS. So under the production area, there is a option here called bill of materials management, and that's been there for a while. And there's various options in here around the ability to change BOMs, add BOM lines, delete BOM lines. So now there's a new option to delete a BOM completely. Do treat this one carefully, because it will go in and just sort of do a bulk deletion without giving you an option to see what it's going to do. So if you are doing something, if you're not sure of what selection criteria you should be using, please do this in a test system first before you go off and sort of start doing bulk updates, because there's sort of no easy way of rolling back once you've done it. So there's next enhancement. There's a small enhancement in the duplicate customer vendor or customer vendor reference number check on transactions. So under administration, system initialization, document settings, there's a checkbox here around when duplicate customer reference occurs. What do you do? If you're on a warn or block, then there's an option now to say, when you're checking for duplicates, should the duplicates be checked on the individual customer, or do you want to check the duplicate across all customers? So that's one setting. And then the other setting is, maybe the customer may send the same order number in the new financial year. So do you want to check for duplicates in the current fiscal year only, or should it be across all fiscal years? So that's a small enhancement there. Now, the ability to add queries to the SAP Business One menu. So you've got your query manager, you've written the query. You can now assign that as, what's this query? Let's say it's this one here, this is a customer list query. I can assign this to the SAP menu. So I can go assign to menu. Where do I want it? It's under business partner reports. That's where I want to save it. All good. And then under the business partner menu, business partners, I've got the customer list item here. And so it's not in my standard menu, but when I run it, it's essentially the same query that I had saved in my query manager. The next enhancement is the link between customer addresses or business partner addresses and contact persons. So when you look at a contact person, you can now go in and say, this contact person is connected to this particular address from my business partner. And so let's say it's connected to the first ship to address. And what happens then is that standard address in the contact field is overwritten by whatever the address is on the connected address. Right, so, and you don't have now the ability, you can no longer change that particular address manually, because it's based on that ship to address. So that's the enhancement there around linking addresses and contacts. And then the final enhancement is around substitute approver setup. And what does that mean? So if you've got someone who's an approver and they're going away on leave, or they're sort of not at work today, and someone else needs to just step in for a small period of time to look after the approval requests, what you can do is go into the administration approval process, and there's a now new option here called Substitute Authorizer for Approval Templates. So you go in there, and in there you can say, well, who is the approving person that needs to be replaced or substituted? Who is the substitute that's going to take care of it? What date range is that substitution valid for? And, which particular approval templates are to be applied to this particular change, and then whether it's active or not. And so, depending on the settings, if the person's away, then the substitute will receive the actual approval request. And then the rest of the process is the same. It's just the actual approval request gets routed to to someone else. That's all that's changing there. And that concludes what we were hoping to cover today. If you do have any further questions, you want some more training, or you want to sort of look at doing an upgrade to version 10, please reach out to your account manager or to your consultant and discuss that.